are to be in pictures.
Very good.
That was
How
great.
many times can we say ah? You know what? You can't say enough after a delicious sip of yerba mate.
That's right.
Thank you to our sponsor, Guayaki, purveyors of fine organic brand yerba mate.
Well done.
Come to life.
Come to life.
Well, today we had a okay time at the cinema.
Yeah, that is accurate.
Yeah.
It was all right.
I'd say it was pretty good.
I'd say it was adequate.
It was all right.
It was adequate.
It was
Maybe mediocre.
So we saw Tomb Raider, the latest reboot of the Tomb Raider franchise.
Yep.
The quick synopsis is Lara Croft, the fiercely independent daughter of a missing adventurer, must push herself beyond her limits when she finds herself on the island where her father disappeared. Directed by Roar Uthong. His name's Roar.
That's pretty awesome.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Good name, man.
Roar Thagnarok.
What I could not help but feeling from this movie was that it was just okay. It wasn't good. But
Not really.
But, you know, for many movies that aren't good, when you walk out, you can immediately say the acting was terrible. Or you could walk out and say the writing was a mess. Or you could walk out and say the camera work, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
But they got everything right.
They did.
That's what's weird about a movie like this, right? Every person involved with this movie, from all appearances, did their job correctly. The script had all the right beats.
Yep.
You had your 3-act structure. They more or less developed characters in the adequate amount for this kind of movie. Performances were all fine.
Good. Fine.
And good, yeah. Alicia Vikander.
Yeah, I thought she was actually very good.
She was fantastic.
Yeah.
She did a great job.
Yeah.
And yet, I still left the theater feeling like, blah.
Yeah, really, it's really hard to talk about it because it's not a good movie necessarily. You know, there were moments and set pieces that I enjoyed a lot, but most of it was just
I want to like a movie like this. I was rooting for it. There were times where I was like, this might work.
Yeah.
It's looking good.
Right.
Come on. And it just never quite got there. And so it raises this question that we want to talk about today. Is good enough ever good enough?
Right.
When it comes to filmmaking. And when we're working on our projects, that's always a red flag. If you can tell that one of us is just like, okay, that's good enough. One of us will always call the other one out and be like, whoa. Good and something's wrong, right? It could have been better.
Exactly.
And those decisions are what separates something that's just fades into the mix and something that's truly stands out and it's really good.
Right.
So what do you think happened here, D?
Mediocre movie, man. I think actually what really happened throughout the script writing process was that because it's a video game adaptation, you take a game story and then turn it into a script, and you want to hit certain points along the way. But of course, script writing means that you got to have motives for those points, and so they developed motives for every point. And sure enough, I mean, every motive, everything, every action that happened in this movie had a motive, and that was it. Mm-hmm. You didn't really feel, why Laura needed to do this, or why her dad needed to do that, or why we even care about why they're exploring.
I think that actually might be part of the problem.
Yeah.
When you adhere to all of these little rules of filmmaking, right? The standard accepted steps to making a good movie.
Yeah.
If you've seen enough movies, you've now fallen to the rhythm and you know what to expect. And there were many instances in this film where I knew what was coming.
Yeah.
Spoilers, by the way.
Tons. This whole thing's
coming
a
up. This is all spoilers. So
if you really, really care about Tomb Raider,
go see it before we talk. Or just listen to us, you'll have the same experience.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
It's actually not that great of a movie. But for example, when the guy, the main antagonist, they've opened up this sarcophagus and he needs to take a piece of it back with him to his big bosses, right? So he cuts off the finger of the mummy, which is infected with like a virus, and he puts it in a little plastic baggie because that's going to protect him from the virus, and he sticks it in his shirt pocket, and you just knew now,
Yeah.
okay, later on in a point of desperation, she's going to like puncture that thing so he catches the virus and dies, and it was obvious from the moment.
It was.
So you can get that really
It was.
gruesome Indiana Jones death, and it's the same. The rule: if you show a gun, you have to use it. It's the same exact thing.
Well, and the thing is, like with a lot of movies, when you can tell when something's going to happen, and even with the good movies, when you can tell something's going to happen, you don't necessarily care. If it's a good movie, if it's something that you're really into and you really care about, as soon as that thing happens, and you're just like, oh, I knew that was going to happen, or oh, I didn't see that happen, but whatever it was, you had passionate about it. When it's mediocre, when it's just hitting the hits, you're just like, oh, well, yeah, that happened, and oh, yeah, I saw that happening. And
So you're saying the difference between a movie that's mediocre, like Tomb Raider, that hits all these beats that you're supposed to, or whatever, to
Right.
make a good movie, that it becomes disconnected because there was a lack of passion behind the filmmaking involved.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say because the film was about Tomb Raider. It wasn't about Lara Croft.
Yeah.
Not Lara Croft as a person. And they did do some interesting things in the beginning, like we talked about right after we came out of the theater, about how they develop her home life, and that was really cool. Like they had a cool scene where she's racing bikes.
Yeah.
And she's trying to get away from people and building up her character, and we're like, oh, that's neat. Where are they going to take it next? And then it's just next story beat, and you're just like, we don't get to grow with anybody.
Right.
We don't care about anything. Everything's just kind of happening, and you're just like, well, it's understandable.
Yeah. You're not questioning like, oh, but how did they know this, and why did they know this, and why
Right.
are they doing this? Everything has an answer to it, but it's just boring.
That's it.
I have a theory. When you go to a movie, you simultaneously want two things that are in opposition to each other. Two things that should cancel each other out, but in fact often exist at the same time in the best movies. And that is, one, you want satisfaction, and two, you want to be taken by surprise. Okay? So that means there's certain types of feedback that you hope to get out of your movie experience. You go in, whether you know it or not, you're going in hoping to see a human character face extreme challenges. You're hoping to see that character overcome those challenges and ultimately triumph, right? We go into movies with that hunger. That's largely the story everyone's seeking to hear.
Right. You
when
want a
they
hero.
go to a film.
Yeah.
At the same time, people love having the rug pulled out under their feet.
Sure.
Okay? They like when Darth Vader tells Luke, "I'm your father," right? If Empire Strikes Back had just hit all of the same beats as any other adventure movie that was out there, it would have just been another adventure movie,
Right.
like this one was. But it was because it had that great subversion moment, that great moment where it's like, whoa, we jumped off the rails of where we thought this was going. That made it a truly spectacular movie,
Right.
right? So you got to do both those things. This movie was an example of just trying to give you all those things that a movie is supposed to give you in the traditional right way. Star Wars The Last Jedi was the opposite,
Yeah.
right? Where Rian Johnson said, I'm going to find every point I can to try to pull a fast one on the audience and give them something different than they thought they were going to get.
Yeah.
Which obviously created very mixed reviews. We didn't care for at all because it was just overdone. It felt like
Right.
subversion for subversion's sake.
Which
Exactly.
it was,
So I feel like there's this fine.
admittedly.
Yeah, he even seemed to admit as much.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that the sweet spot is if you can make a film that delivers on all these subconscious hungers that we have in hearing a story that takes us on a human journey to triumph, while at the same time finding ways to jump off of that path in ways that are surprising and unlooked for, unanticipated.
Yeah, that's not easy to do, because essentially what you have to do is you have to surprise but still deliver on expectations. So you have to do the right kind of surprise that you're expecting in a way. It's such a weird place to be, and it's hard to do that. I think that's hard to sit down and write that kind of thing. That's really challenging.
Yeah, I would say. I'd say you're kind of correct. I'd say 85% correct.
What's the 15?
When when I said before that if you see if you say a formulaic movie, something that's like Dread, for instance, there was nothing in that movie that I didn't expect. Everything was expected, and I got all of it, and it was still phenomenal.
Yeah.
I loved it, and it's because I had fun every step of the way because I was invested. And things happened that were interesting, and I think they were interesting because I was engaged in the character or in the action or in for the reason, all those things. It's because it pulled me in somehow. And this movie, Tomb Raider, doesn't pull you in. At least I don't think it does. At least it didn't do it for me.
No.
I mean, I nearly fell asleep several times.
I did fall asleep.
And you did fall asleep.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. There probably are examples of movies that all hit the beats and don't have any subversion.
Yeah.
And yet are immersive, wonderful film experiences.
Or even 100% subversion and still wonderful, like Mother, for instance.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful is an interesting. I don't know if there's any descriptive term that's actually fully appropriate to that movie. Mother by Darren Aronofsky. If you haven't seen it, I can't recommend it. Really, it's you have to decide you want to see that,
And you have to decide if you like that kind of stuff afterwards.
I'd recommend it.
I love it.
Just throw you in the deep
I
end.
love it
Go
too.
for it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't ask
Couldn't
my
really
mother
recommend
to see
it. No.
Mother is not a Mother's Day movie.
Maybe not.
It's not about mothers, really, at all. Okay.
I think what the difference is with that thought, the 15% that D mentions, is this movie is mediocre, and it hits all these places, these beats with adequacy, whereas Dread hits all those beats and isn't really subversive at all, but it does everything like masterfully. Like it is like it's cinematography excellence and editing excellence and atmospheric excellence.
Right.
Whereas Tomb Raider is just a generic adventure movie that is just fine.
Right, but we're still talking about like a non-tangible here. Like
Sure.
what is that difference maker? Because if we were grading on paper, like if we were like college professors and we had to grade movies, right? And if I had to say, well, in carrying out the duties of a cinematographer properly, what do I give this guy? A.
Right.
Script. A. Performance. A. The effects. A. Right? This movie was a solid B plus at least, if not an A, if you had to grade it just straightforward that way.
On technical aspects, right?
So what you're suggesting is that the excellent films are A films that the student put in like a glitter covered binder with like I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that did something with it. That actually went
It's going
somewhere.
that extra. It's putting their own
Yeah,
flavor in it.
putting their and I think it's that passion, that really pushes it. And I mean, I don't know what's like even when there's things like Black Panther. I mean, Black Panther had passion in it. It had
feel it.
interests.
Yeah. That's absolutely true.
It did elevate that movie in the Marvel relative. That passion did come through, and I think that's why that is one of the better Marvel movies. But still, like, I don't know, like, now we're talking about Marvel because I'm about to go into this thing, like,
Sorry,
everything is in Marvel is you can be extremely passionate, but it's like allowed passion. It's like appropriate passion.
I think that's
okayed.
different though.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. I know what you're talking about because you're talking about almost like Disney allowing 10% personality
Yeah.
to 90% formula.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I know what you mean.
So that's why it's hard to compare Marvel
Right.
movies to
And those
what
movies
we're talking
are all
about.
very extremely formulaic.
Yeah,
right?
well, almost
The whole-
in their own unique way
The
too.
whole Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
You know exactly what you're getting when you do a Marvel.
Right.
With maybe the exception of Black Panther.
But having subversion in those formulas, I don't think makes that movie then good though.
No, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. It's just awfully hard to say that the missing ingredient was passion
Yeah.
because we don't know. Like, could
Yeah.
you not have made this movie with passion?
I
And you know,
And
it
it
just
still
didn't
be
work.
mediocre.
I mean, maybe. You know, one of the things that kept entering my mind while watching this was like, and I think I've said this before about other films, but I was like, this is a terrific student film. This is a really, really good student film. It's like someone who wanted to make a film, and they went and studied every single aspect of filmmaking and hit every single point perfectly. They're like, there, I made a film, right? But they didn't actually want to make it. They made it because they
That's
they
what
wanted
you
to
do.
get each of those.
It's like a job.
Yeah, and
that point.
it felt almost like a job. In that
But how
aspect.
come it doesn't translate to good? You know what I mean? How come you can hit all those points?
You mean like
and-
what are you feeling when it's passionate?
Yeah.
I
don't
wonder
know.
if
It's
like
weird.
if innovation
Yeah,
is a missing ingredient.
it could be.
Because the parts of this film that actually worked were the things that we really hadn't seen before, or at least done that way. We talk about the boat crash scene,
which is a really good scene.
which was shot in a way that was extremely claustrophobic and confusing and disorienting. And for me, increased the panic of the moment. Like, you kind of feel like you're on the verge of drowning
Yeah.
with her.
Yeah,
That was really cool, all right? And if that kind of artistry was carried throughout the whole movie, I think we'd have a very different conversation right now,
right.
Mhm.
right? The rest of this movie felt very recycled,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
especially recycled pieces of Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah.
With once they're into this cavern inside the mountain, with secret puzzles to get through locked doors and stepping on the floor panel and two
Yep.
doors shut and the floor's falling out
Yep.
and spikes are coming up from the ground. Those are all. I mean, I was ready for darts
Right.
and a big stone ball
Right.
or something.
Yeah.
I've got something to add. Are you finished? I don't
Well,
want to
all
cut
I
you
was
off.
all I was taking that is that I think way more of this movie were things that we've seen again and again and again, as opposed to things that were fresh and exciting.
Yeah.
And maybe what we're talking about is there's a golden ratio of proven things that work in other movies that we are fine to emulate, but a certain percentage of this film needs to be innovated.
Yeah.
It needs
Yeah.
to be fresh and new and exciting.
Yeah, I want to agree with you, but at the same time, I don't think I can fully because I'm thinking of National Treasure.
First one?
Yeah, the
I
first
thought
one.
about that movie a little bit too while
Yeah.
watching this.
So now, this movie did pretty much a lot of what National Treasure did, where you're following clues to get to something.
Sure.
But they did almost like the same motions, where she has a physical object and she's twisting it and turning it out of curiosity, gets something out of
Yeah.
it.
Which is totally Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, and it totally is. Some of those really, really worked. Like, for example, when she's twisting and turning like the Chinese or the Japanese puzzle, I guess, that she got from her dad.
The very first time.
The very first time. That one was interesting. And then when she found out something that was inside, she got to that first clue, want to see where that goes, and then it stops being interesting after that. Then they almost go to montages where she's just doing puzzles.
Right.
And then
I need
there's
to solve clues, so we just see a montage of her
Solving
tinkering,
clues.
Yeah.
and
And
then
so-
she's figured it out, but we don't really know how she figured
exactly.
it out.
So then she has like a cryptex in one of these things, or a weird looking cryptex, where she's also turning it, but we don't know why. And then it goes,
and she
then-
goes,
oh, right.
But
And the
we-
audience is like, okay.
Yeah, we don't know exactly what she discovered.
Right.
We just know that now she's filled with wisdom.
So now, they've gone through the motions of unlocking a puzzle, getting to a secret area, unlocking the mystery, but we don't care about
because
any
it
of
wasn't earned.
Because it wasn't earned.
Yeah, it
That's
wasn't
a
earned.
really good point, because in many of the other treasure hunty sort of films we've had in the past, at least the good ones,
Yeah.
you, the audience, are puzzled
Yeah.
with the character.
For a reason.
And you're trying to solve it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you know the question.
Right.
You
Yep.
didn't even really know the question.
And
Right.
you
that's
know.
why you get invested in that
That's
movie
true.
typically.
They did
Yeah.
blow right over
And
that.
because
So-
of that, you're not solving puzzles with Laura. You're
And
just watching her figure
That's
things
exactly
out.
it.
And so this is interesting.
Yeah.
They spent most of this movie all about her and her dad.
Yeah.
And
Right.
her wanting to rescue her dad.
Right.
They barely touched on getting into this mountain and releasing this curse and all this kind of stuff. So
Right.
that when it came to that point, you really didn't feel any weight.
Didn't care. Yeah.
You didn't care
Yeah.
about her. And they
Right.
had this big reveal about that about the evil witch buried in the mountain.
Right.
This big twist about
Which-
her character, but you didn't care about her character in the first place. So
It was even more interesting to see, like, the very generic scene of her seeing her dad, who's still alive, inside of a cave, and her, creeping up to him, and he's like, forget about her. She's not real. Like, that was more interesting than the whole second half of the movie, which is them going, careful with that trap.
Yeah.
Careful with that trap.
Ugh.
I'm going to shoot you. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting
they
aspect
just
that you
needed
brought
a
up.
tomb.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it'd be Tomb Raider.
So when you talked about she cared about saving her dad, right? And then she goes to she finds out that she was taken prisoner, basically being made into a slave or whatever by this guy. And the guy says, "I killed your dad," right? Just like, which was really cool. I like that, just kind of offbeat. It's like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, I killed him." It's like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh shit!" Like,
Yeah.
where's the story gonna go now? And I'm like, that's really interesting. And then they showed the dad was alive. I'm like, oh well.
And then, yeah.
Well, never mind.
So they revealed he was alive, which then suggests, okay, we're going to get a story here of how he faked his death or something.
Yeah.
Why this other guy thought he was dead, but we never got
Yeah,
that
it's never
either.
explained really. It's so
Yeah.
weird.
So now the movie basically thinks that the audience is invested because
The movie thinks.
the director thought that, or the writer says that, okay, now that you're invested with these characters, now you can be invested in what they care about. And I'm like,
But they missed it.
but they don't care about that, right? Yeah, Laura doesn't care about getting to the cave. Her dad does, but we haven't grown with him, So we're not invested at all. So the movie, I think, has a completely lack of interest in investment.
Okay, now we've backpedaled on our initial thesis.
Yeah. a little bit.
Because-
'Cause now this is just a bad movie.
Because now you're demonstrating that this is a poorly written script.
Yeah. The script
The
is the
story
weak point.
structure is the weak point.
Yeah, I guess if you could say that investing emotionally.
Yeah, I mean the
Is a
story
story structure.
put the focus on parts that didn't resonate with the journey of the audience.
Right. Okay, so you know what this is then? Is when we talk about motivations behind your actions. When someone focuses solely on motivation, then this is the movie that they get, where it's just void of emotion.
That's true.
Yeah.
It was all about the motivation of her getting to her father.
Right. Because everything made sense.
But you
Yeah.
don't hear anything. So we enter into this like vacuum of.
Of logic.
Well, yeah, it's just this space where the whole story is sort of dictated by her emotions, right? at the expense of everything going on outside of her and around her.
Right.
Right?
Right, exactly.
So it's almost like the island was like the island, the quest, the bad guys were all subplots to her rescuing her dad. But the movie wasn't about her rescuing her dad. It was about the island and the
because it was a Tomb Raider movie.
Gross.
That's why.
That's bad.
It's because someone was like, let's make a Tomb Raider movie, and they're like, no. I know how movies work. Let's introduce her character, grow the emotional toll between her and her dad, and then go into the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And, you know, another thing this movie missed was all of the supporting characters are really, really flat, and they don't really support. So,
Very
like,
thin.
Laura Croft and how do you pronounce her name? Alicia Vikander?
Yes, that's as good as I could guess.
She does a great job in her role. Like, she's a good actress.
Yeah.
She does very, very
I
well.
thought so too.
But she had nobody else to play off of.
It
Nobody,
totally felt that way.
And they almost had it with that relationship that she develops with that other sailor whose father also disappeared.
Yeah.
And they go out on the sea together, and I thought they were going to be like...
But they
like,
abandoned it.
Yeah, I thought they were going to be like buddies through the whole movie.
Yeah.
But, oh no, he's actually just like enslaved now for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, no, he was just a
What?
mechanism to get her to dad.
Which
That's exactly it.
is a Deus Ex Machina, which this entire movie is just constantly cruxed on. Every pivotal plot point is a Deus Ex Machina.
You want to
pretty
explain
much.
what that means for those who
If we're-
haven't?
yeah.
So a Deus Ex Machina is essentially when you like write yourself into some kind of conundrum that you need
A
to
corner,
solve.
yeah.
Yeah, a corner. So you just make something up.
You just make something randomly appear.
Without any motive.
Without any reason.
Yeah.
The ultimate example would be
in Lord of the Rings.
yeah, the end of Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, when they're on Mount, what's it called?
Mount Doom.
Yeah, Mount Doom, and the eagles come in and fly them back to the Shire
Yeah.
when the whole trilogy,
because they're all about to die.
yeah, because they're all about to die and the story's over, so they just fly back.
Right. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
the ultimate
Which is
example,
fine,
right?
you know? It's okay because that's the only time in that entire trilogy where that's done.
Right. And you can argue, different things about that, but like you said,
But still,
yeah.
all of the puzzle boxes are Deus Ex Machinas, where like she's literally like given a box and then she just tinkers with the box for 5 seconds and it's just like, oh, this is where I go.
Right. Exactly.
It's so blatant
Yeah.
that it's
This
like,
was a minor one, but
crazy.
it was my absolute favorite of the movie.
Yeah.
Is after her father realizes he's infected with the virus. He knows he's not getting out of their lives. So his last mission is he's going to destroy this place before anything worse happens. So he says his goodbye to his daughter Laura and says, "You have to go on without me. I'm going to make sure nothing else gets out of this place again." And it pans down to his arms are just full of explosives. He's like, "I'm going to blow this place up." And it's like, where did you get those? He wasn't carrying. He's just like, "I'm going to torch this place. I have dynamite." Like, what? Not to mention that, like, on their whole way down, whenever they had a problem, they had like the gear to solve it.
That ladder.
They
had a
come to
giant
this
ladder.
huge chasm, and they're like, "Oh, the chasm," and then cut to they're laying a huge ladder across the chasm, which was not there before.
Yeah.
And then the main antagonist, the bad guy, tells his crew, he's like, leave a trail of lights for us, and they're like, okay, and they all start pulling out these huge 3-foot tall
Really fancy glow
sticks.
sticks.
Yeah.
glow sticks to leave. They leave like 40 of them on their path, and they're like, where did these come from? They were just walking with guns before.
And the thing here is, like, even if they were to patch all those holes, right? If they were to make sure that those things made sense, it wouldn't make it a good movie.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about when we talk about mediocrity. It's like you hit all the points perfectly. Like, even so, like, those points they didn't, right? But like the infinite ammo thing, like, that all movies are bad with. This one had a lot of times where a guy's gun jammed or someone ran out of ammo and had to reload and stuff like that. They acknowledged that those plot holes existed and fixed them, but it didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Because we're not emotionally invested again.
So what would it take for this movie? Like, what specific things could they have changed in their approach to this movie to make it a great movie?
To make it like palatable.
Yeah, to make it like, a movie that you want to see when you go to the theaters, like an Indiana Jones, a great movie.
Yeah.
Like, what would it take?
This was clearly set up to create a series of some kind to make they want a franchise here.
Well,
but you did not leave feeling like you wanted to see more.
Absolutely not.
And even they had like a kind of a twist ending where you're just like, yeah, don't you wish you saw more? No.
Yeah.
I think what you have to do, one of the ways to get someone more involved is to build your story out of the personalities of the characters. This is kind of a fish out of water context where we have Laura Croft, who's just kind of dropped into a mystery island because her dad's there. It could have been better. I mean, so you can do things like that because there's definitely good movies that are like that, fish out of water stuff. But if she had like a personal gain from deciding puzzles or from something like that, or maybe figuring out the puzzle was her key to finding her dad or something like that. All these things where we talk about the growth of the character herself, and we get invested in her personality and who she is as a person, as a human being, and the whole story is built out of that. I think that's how you make it good.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there needed to be a lot more time spent on supporting characters, and I think there needed to be a lot more time spent off of the island. Like I think the island should have been like the third act.
Yeah.
And like the first act all set up, second act is like figuring out how to get there, and like figuring out how to get there with like your new friend that you met in Hong Kong who happens to have a father who disappeared the exact same way. So that was a cool personal relationship that was developed and then thrown away. Develop that out more over the second act. They get into like a cool chase scene when they get into trouble or something like that.
Yeah.
Then they finally shipwreck, and then it's a crazy little journey into finding the father who is twist alive this whole time. I don't know.
I think they needed to spend more time making the stakes more real.
Yeah.
Right? So her father was obsessed with this idea of stopping this tomb from being opened because it had the potential of destroying the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that that was true,
Right.
that it did have that.
Right.
So there was a very real, serious issue, almost like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
Eventually, these bad guys are going to open up that tomb, and it could mean the end of the world. But you never once felt that threat.
Yeah.
At all.
Or not that you
really
anyway.
You really weren't even sure they were ever going to find anything in
Right.
there. Like, it just didn't feel imminent, and you didn't have enough information or investment into that story to care.
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly it.
I mean, we should have felt dis-ease when they first went down into that cave.
Yeah.
On their way to the tomb. We should have felt very uncomfortable and started getting nervous with each step they got closer to that sarcophagus.
Right.
But they didn't give us enough.
No.
They didn't.
To do that.
I was just waiting for something interesting to happen.
Right.
It's like, get there already.
Like to make something, do something. National Treasure has a really good moment where they go way down into their last search, where all the clues have gone to, and it's an empty room. And
yes.
And you're like, and you feel heavy at that moment. You're just like, oh, the
treasure's
not there. It's,
yeah.
oh no, like, and you're like, you're wanting something and you feel bad, and then when they do the whole twist thing, then you feel good again.
Yeah.
Like, it's really interesting because you care about why he's trying to find it. You know.
Because they set up all the. I think what you hit upon earlier today was exactly it, where it was like they involved the audience with knowing the puzzles,
right,
and stuff, and not just show Laura figuring out a puzzle in her own head, and not.
You have to figure out every step of the puzzle.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which is where you have another big puzzle-solving movie coming out in a couple weeks in Ready Player One, and if it's anything like the book, which I'm hoping it will be solving challenging puzzles with the main character.
I hope so. I would love to watch
puzzles
a movie
based
like
on 1980s pop culture, by the way. So
That'll be fun.
Should be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like she went on the journey but didn't bring the audience.
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
that's the whole point. Is
Yeah.
we're supposed to go on a journey with the character.
I
Funny
don't want
enough,
to watch a journey.
Yeah, funny enough, this is like what you were talking about adapting video games to movies. Feels like it's taking a step backwards
Yeah.
because this movie very much left out the interactive element, which is the audience
yeah.
gets to be where
Yeah.
Laura is.
So we had a long talk earlier today about why is it that video game movies always miss the mark, and we did the research to back this up. Literally every video game movie has been at least a critical failure,
Right.
if not a box office failure. The highest rated video game movie on Rotten Tomatoes has a 50% score, which is what Lara Croft has right now, actually. So if she could get a couple
High
more
bar.
red tomatoes, this could be the most successful, most critically acclaimed video game movie.
film.
Yeah.
But the theory came down to this: when you adapt a book to a movie, there are things that you can do in that medium that you can't do in a book.
Mhm.
Even though you can't get across as much information as in a book, you are able to expand and add to the experience with something new
Visuals.
that is visually.
Yep.
When you adapt a video game, the audio-visual aspect is already there.
Right.
The only thing you do is take away something,
Right.
which is the interactivity.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
And that's your, in video games or in interactive media, that's your connection for emotional engagement in video games is the interactivity.
Yeah.
So you have to replace that with something else.
yeah.
And that needs to be an emotional story, which they like almost got in this movie in the beginning, and then they just dropped it. You know.
Yeah. Well, I feel like they tried to take us on a journey, but the journey that they took us on was her journey back into her father's life, and not the actual journey of going to this scary place
Yeah.
and solving a mystery.
Right. Emotionally,
and
it wasn't.
preventing a worldwide crisis.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like we were brought on board just enough, but not enough for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you're saying about the timer, the ticking time bomb
Yeah.
concept, with this disease that this mummy has that could just wipe out everything. Because this disease, you just touch the body and bam, you're dead pretty much, and you turn into like a zombie. If they would have like the opening scene, maybe they have them crack in and go and discover the mummy for the first time, and someone gets that disease in the opening scene, then you set the consequences, like you're saying, just absolutely. So you have this constant
start with this scene
timer.
from 2,000 years ago in Japan.
Oh yeah,
where a plague is wiping out humanity, and you can see the horror of this character
Right.
in action,
Right.
and then the thought of releasing her again is terrifying.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Which
Yeah.
they like they do this like tapestry kind of thing.
They do like a mystery book,
But yeah, they keep it. It's like they wanted to keep that
a secret.
a secret, because there was also this weird theme that was really stupid. The way the antagonist and Laura's dad played off each other was like, oh, it's supernatural. Oh no, it's just science. It's like, ooh, it sounds like when they get into the tomb, they're like, there's like this whooshing sound, and Laura's dad is like, oh, she's still breathing, and then the antagonist is like, no, it's an atmospheric pressure change. It's just the stupid banter that's like not deep at all, and it doesn't really say anything, and then it just turns out that science was right, because it's just a disease. It's not magic.
Yeah, I wanna bring up something real quick. A
All right.
totally unfair comparison
Sure.
of this movie to Annihilation.
Yeah, there's I'd say that's a different league entirely.
What Annihilation does way better, again, the unfair, is introducing the stakes. Understanding that, like, when we're watching Annihilation, we can understand that this alien form of some sort will and can destroy a lot of the Earth. And we're not emotionally connected with the Earth, but we are emotionally connected with people who are going into there and discovering what this whole thing is about. And we've understood what it's taking over, what it's going to do next, and you know, and we can
Yeah.
get on board with that. But this,
Yeah,
it
and
didn't
that
happen.
was, interestingly enough, about a woman's journey to save her spouse,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
very
so they
similar.
did a very similar thing, and yet we got more than enough information to be rather horrified at what was happening to the planet.
Yep.
Right. And the whole time, also, we're emotionally invested because we get to see her reactions to seeing leftover things from her spouse. You know,
Yes.
because
Yep.
they keep that thorough line going
Yeah. Yeah.
through line.
Yep. So I think our conclusion here then is that a good enough movie will never be good enough.
No, yeah, it just can't.
You can't just hit technical
It
points.
needs more.
Yeah.
It
You,
needs
I think
much
you
more.
need a grip. You need emotional grip.
Yeah.
Or a movie isn't a technical amalgamation.
Exactly.
It's not pieces that you put together and have success. It's art.
Yeah.
Right.
We're
exactly.
talking about a work of
Well,
art.
it's about humans. It's
Yeah.
about connecting with people. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
If it's
No.
mediocre, it's bad.
Yeah, I
Amen.
would agree.
All right. Well, you heard it here on the Talkies. Don't waste your time on adequate. Just see good movies. Save yourself. Save your money. If you have Movie Pass, sure, go check out Laura Croft. There's worse things you could do with your day.
Absolutely.
And in our pizza analogy, continuing.
Oh, yeah.
From Death Wish, which we said was essentially it had the ingredients of a good movie, but no one
Just
put it in
wasn't
the
cooked.
oven.
Yeah.
It was like a frozen, uncooked pizza that you were forced to eat. This was more like a pizza that had crust that's been baked and good sauce and
Yeah,
cheese and
use some
toppings.
cheese.
But it was probably baked a few hours ago and it's been sitting under a heat lamp
Yeah.
with like flies on it and stuff. And,
Yeah.
It's
You know.
like, you know, I'm hungry. I want some pizza, and I'll eat it. And yeah, it's pizza.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
still pizza.
you
Yeah.
know, but
But I mean, you just know it's not very good.
and other people are sitting there going, but that's pizza. And you're like, yeah, but
It's
is
not
it
good,
that
though.
good? And they're like, it doesn't matter. It's pizza. And you're like,
Well, it's like when you go to a Pizza Hut and you know you're going to Pizza Hut, you don't get upset that you didn't get like gourmet pizzeria
Sure. Right.
pizza.
Right.
You got exactly what you expected, and that's what Tomb Raider is.
It was.
It's Pizza Hut pizza, and as long as that's what you signed up for, it's all right.
it's what you
Yeah.
got.
It's all right.
It's what you got.
It does the job, but you
Yeah.
know, if you're trying to really, get into pizza, it's not good pizza.
It's not good pizza.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Go hunt for some better pizza.
Go for the good pizza.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. And
Yeah.
until next time, I am Kenny,
I'm D.
And I'm Taylor.
and we will see you at the pizzeria or the Talkies.
Talkies. Do you have 2 mates?
Yeah, I do.
That's a little excessive. You ought to be in pictures.
You ought to be in pictures. You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be. Your voice would thrill a nation.